All right, so this video today is going to be about style guides, which is essentially about sort of how to format your writing, particularly math writing. And so the first thing I want to get into, and you may already know this, but is sort of this question of, so what is a style guide? So a style guide is just an accepted standard for how documents should be written, formatted, and organized. Okay, so it's essentially just sort of if we wanted to be, I'm not sure what word I'm looking for, but if we want to be, I guess, really basic about this, it's just a list of rules for the ways that you should format and organize a document that's going to be submitted. Some of you may be aware of the fact that there are a variety of different style guides. You may have heard different teachers talking about them, or different students, or you saw a video online or read something that somebody wrote that said you should use this one or you should use this one. So I think the first thing that I would say is that there are indeed a variety of different style guides, and the one that you use depends on both the subject that you're writing in, but also just your teacher or your professor's preferences. So for instance, just because MLA, or the Modern Language Association, just because that's commonly used for academic writing in literature and humanities, doesn't mean that every English paper or literature paper you ever write has to be an MLA. You should make sure that you talk to your teacher or your professor about it to see what it is that they want. So MLA is a really, really common one. Another one that comes up quite often is the Chicago Manual Style, or CMOS. That's commonly used for the arts and the social sciences, and it turns out that something close to the Chicago Manual style is what's used for math papers. I do want to mention here that the IB organization does not require that students use a specific style guide in their writing, but they do expect that students are going to be consistent about the way that they format their writing. I think for a long time as a teacher, I used to straight out tell students that, like, hey, IB doesn't really care how you format them as long as you're consistent. But it's hard for students to know how to make things consistent or what those things should be. And so this video is a little bit of a response to that, and me saying, hey, why don't we sort of set down what the rules are for the way that math papers are written and formatted and published, and what style guides mathematicians use, and that way you get an opportunity to learn those things, and you don't have to worry about how you should be doing something consistently. You can essentially follow the rules that I'm going to be going through and setting down and sharing with you. So a quick comment here. There's this question of, do style guides ever change? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Style guides are constantly being updated. And so if you're watching this video or using this resource anytime after June 2021, be aware that some of this information may be a little bit out of date. And so I want to point out to you that the important part of this lesson and the videos that will come down the line isn't so much about memorizing the style guide, but understanding what a style guide is, what you'll find in it, what vocabulary they use, and how it can help you to write more clearly and confidently in the work that you're doing. So again, I'm not going to give you a quiz at any point that says, like, okay, how would you format this thing? Show me that you've memorized this thing. To me, it's less about you knowing exactly what those things are and having it committed to memory, and more that when you need to find it, you know what to look for. You know how to look these things up, and what these words mean. So the next thing I want to do in trying to meet that aim, I want to share with you sort of what the major parts of a style guide are. There are some sort of specific words that are used across a variety of style guides, and you knowing what these words are will help you to find the part of a style guide that you need in order to have sort of be able to find the section that you need to talk about the formatting that you're looking for. So one part of style guides is the phrase top matter. Okay, so when a style guide talks about top matter, they're basically talking about, like, if you imagine your paper as a whole, giant paper, the top of the paper isn't the top of the page, it's the top of the paper, which means the title page. Okay, so top matter is really about what to include on your title page and how to format that title page. Okay, Another important section is called running heads. Okay, you may be aware of the word or the words header and footer. So running heads is really about what do we put in the header of each page and how do we format that information. Okay, so you've got top matter about the title page, you've got running heads that are about the header. Next up, you've got end matter. Now, if you made sense of what top matter was about, you probably understand what end matter is about. If you imagine your research paper is this stack of papers, the top matter would be the title page. The end matter would be, hey, how do we format anything that comes at the end of a paper? So a bibliography, a works cited, an appendix. There's lots of other things that might be in end matter, and in style guides in general, you're going to find way more guidance than you're going to need. What we're writing at a high school level, even like introductory college level for IB purposes, we're not going to be including every single thing that goes into all of these things. But again, you knowing that end matter means what's at the end of a paper means that you can go to a style guide and not try and search for what do I put at the end of my paper. You can search for end matter and you can read that section. You can understand what should go there and how it should be formatted. Another important part of a style guide, and maybe I don't know that I would say that it's the most important part, but I think the part that's often focused on by students is references. So references means how do you format citations that you have in your text? So are you doing like a parenthetical thing? Are you doing, an end note? Are you doing a little one and writing it? Like, how are you doing that thing and how should that be formatted? So references are another thing that you'll find in style guides. Another section that you'll find in a style guide is guidance about how to format sections and subsections. So if you're going to say, part one, introduction, and then you have a subpart in the introduction where you're talking about your aim, how should you format that? By the way, I kind of realized that when I was talking about end matter here, I mentioned the words bibliography and works cited. This ends up being a really big deal because this gets into how do you write those bibliographic entries, like what information should be there and how should it be formatted. Whereas references is about how do we make references to those entries in the bibliography or in the works cited. Okay, so we've got these ones, and then this last one is a special thing for math papers. And I don't know a whole ton about academic writing in other disciplines. It may very well be that there are similar things in those disciplines as well, but in math, we often want to talk about things like theorems, like proofs, like lemmas, corollaries, definitions. There are things that we might want to bring out and make a bigger deal of. Those things in the AMS, in the American Mathematics Society Style Guide, are called enunciations. And so looking at the section on enunciations is where you would go to look at, hey, how do I format a theorem? How do I format a definition? How do I include something like this properly and consistently in my paper? Okay, so what's next? So I just told you about these 6 different parts of a style guide. So what happens next? Well, I have, or I'm about to make, a series of videos that covers each of those major parts of a style guide for the AMS style guide. And you should know that the AMS style guide, the American Mathematics Association, or I think it's Society, that style guide makes very common reference to the Chicago Manual of Style, CMOS. So what I'm going to be sharing in the next few videos is going to be a little bit about Chicago Manual of Style and a little bit about American Mathematics Society, like that style guide. I just want to remind you at this point that if you're using those videos, they're a really good starting point. Well, I hope to make them a good starting point. But if you're using this video after June of 2021, those style guides might have changed slightly. So remember, after looking at what I'm describing here, you might go and take a look at those style guides specifically and see if they've been updated. If they haven't been updated, if you check this in June of 2022, and when you go to those websites, you see that there haven't been any changes since June of 2021, then the videos that I'm talking about are probably fine. But it's important to know that information changes, and you need to be ready for that. So that's all that I'm going to say at this point about style guides. I hope to see you in the future videos as I go through these different parts and get you ready for it. So I hope that all made sense. As always, if you got questions, please make sure to ask.